Hey everybody, this is Yoritomo, and I am back with the third installment on the weapons series. This time I'm going to be talking about the cannoners. The first section we're going through here are the commons, as always, and most of these are really just about doing some damage. First one does 100% DPS and jumps to the nearest enemies, deals a little more. So it hits a few enemies, does some damage. Next one hits a single target and does 300% damage. Third one deals damage. This one has knockback. So again, like I said in the last episode that I did on the hunter weapons, if you put someone in the back row that has knockback, you can knock Shelly out of your team, and that can be a handy thing. Otherwise, it's just 100% damage. And the next one deals 150% of the wielder's DPS, and it always does critical. If the target is stunned, it's 100%. So all of these, except for the Steamy Bouncer, are damage of one sort or another, and the Steamy Bouncer has knockback. So none of those are real spectacular. The rare weapons are actually a little more interesting here. Flashy Bang Bang does an AoE damage, and the enemies who get hit have their hit chance decreased by 30% for 5 seconds. So that could be helpful if you're taking too much damage. This could keep your cats from getting hit as much. Not bad, not spectacular. The next one deals damage equal to 200% of the wielder's DPS in an area, and that additionally stuns targets for 1 second each. So this is kind of like a baby version of the positron here. It's only 1 second, but it can be useful. The next one is my favorite of the rare weapons, and it's really quite powerful. So this one is, again, like a boss killing weapon, but it's only a rare. So it does damage equal to 5% of the target's maximum hit points. The damage can't exceed 5,000% of the wielder's DPS. Additionally, all enemies are affected by burn, and that does 5% of the damage done by the skill every second for 4 seconds. So this is a rare weapon that can be used against bosses. Now obviously it's not as strong as a boss killing cat, but I put this on my Wonka going up against the guild boss 31. So this was a really high level guild boss, and Wonka doesn't have anything that's going to help him in that battle. There aren't any stuns, there aren't any silences, so this is just 8-star Wonka using his base damage and this weapon. And he ended up doing about 100 million damage each time I used him. Now the boss killing cats were doing closer to 500 million to a billion damage, so not as much damage here, but if you don't have the boss killing cats, it can actually be pretty good to have on your boss team. So this is my favorite rare of all of them, and could also be intriguing if somebody built a burn team. Next one, the Tesla Coil. So this one deals damage equal to 50% of the DPS and chains to 3 of the nearest targets. All the enemies hit take 25% more damage from any source for 3 seconds. So this one's kind of interesting too. It allows you to do more damage over a short amount of time to those cats. There's probably somewhere where it would be interesting, but it's really just a short-term burst. I think the other weapons that synergize with your teams are probably a better choice. So now we're down into the epics, and the positron is the weapon that everybody says to use, and for good reason. Most people run a Wonka team with stun and silence. and this basically hits all of the enemy cats. I think it hits the first one for 160 and then jumps to 4 nearest enemies. So 5 out of 6 enemies get hit for some damage and they're stunned for 2 seconds. Very, very good synergy with that Wonka team. So that one is probably the one that I recommend as well, especially if you're building the meta team with stun and silence. Next one, lasers. Right there says it all, pure damage. Deals damage equal to 500% of the wielder's DPS and penetrates the armor. So if you're just wanting pure damage, this one works, or the Catnon, depending on what your team is set up as. Catterday Fever. This is completely a fire weapon. Hits everybody on the field and burns them for 10% of the damage done per second for 15 seconds. So that's really a good burn. If you're working on having a burn team, if you can boost up that damage, the Catbuster 3000 would really be a strong weapon for a team like that. Finally, we have Catnon. So this one here, the wielder deals damage equal to 400% of his DPS to all enemies in his target's line. So that's just a damage dealer. It gets kind of interesting with this though. This skill benefits twice from all skill damage increase. So one of the devs keeps talking about this weapon and using it with Catman Electra, because with Catman Electra, every percentage of hit points that she loses, she adds 2% of her skill damage. So if she lost half of her health, she would boost skill damage by 100%, which here, that doubles it. So that would be 200%. So this 400% is now boosted to 1200%. And if she loses even more health, that goes up. If you use an artifact that boosts skill damage, that would also go up. So you could get a pretty good size hit out of this, especially if you were using Catman Electra. So this one, very few cats would use it, but it could be strong. So these three here are pretty situational, and then the positron that everybody uses. So if we go take a look at my cats, so I don't run very many cannoners. I do use a Wonka, and I of course have the positron on there. When you get to level 3000, I believe in the main mission, it gives you lasers. So I have that equipped, but not on a cat that I've built up very much. I also have the flamingo. Again, that's really my favorite rare, and I swap it in when I want to do lots of damage with a cannoner if I don't have enough damage being done by my boss killers. So hopefully that overview gives you an idea of what's going on with the cannoner's weapons. I have one more video in this series to do, and that's going to be on the supports. So let me know if there's anything you want me to talk about in that last weapons video. With that, as always, like, comment, subscribe. Those are always appreciated. And Yoritomo out.